This podcast is part of E2C Network, where we share the whole Auburn experience.
Where you go, Auburn fans? Welcome to No Huddle, your source for Auburn football news and discussion, part of the E2C Network. I'm AJ Richardson. I'm also here with Jared Davis. We got a bowl. We are in a bowl. We didn't last year, but we got one this year. It's the Music City Bowl. Thank goodness it's not the Birmingham Bowl. Thank goodness. I'm so happy it's not the Birmingham Bowl. But it's up in Nashville, the Music City Bowl. We're playing Maryland, and it'll be, honestly, at a pretty decent slot. Saturday, December 30th, day before New Year's Eve, at 1 p.m. Pretty excited about that. Maryland this year is 7-5 through their regular season, and I'm pretty excited about this matchup. I mean, I think, obviously, bowl helpful with the practices, extra reps, all that good stuff. But Maryland's a pretty competent team as well. So it's not like you can just like walk through this game and win this one. So, Jared, how are you feeling about the selection and how everything kind of panned out against what we got with Maryland?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's I didn't want Wisconsin or Northwestern, right? Like, just don't give me those teams.
Yeah.
I feel like we've done that so many times. So, Maryland's an opponent that, I mean, we don't, you may have already said, or we're going to talk about, but I mean, we don't play them hardly ever, if ever. Big Ten school. It's kind of still weird to say because they were ACC for so long. Yeah, I mean, I think it'll be fun. I mean, I think it and Tua's brother, their quarterback.
Yeah, Talia.
Yeah, Tagovailoa. So,
and he's pretty good. Like, I was looking up some of his stats this year. He's got 3,300 yards this season and 25 touchdowns. So pretty good. I mean, he's not, top level by any means quarterback, but he's a competent quarterback, and you have to very much respect him and what he's doing. So I feel like that by itself that'll be good for our secondary, because we all know our secondary is pretty solid, but it's always a good matchup when you got a quarterback that can sling the ball.
Yeah, and from a location standpoint, I mean, Nashville's a really cool town. So, I mean, if it's not going to be let's be honest, outside of the top four bowl, outside of the playoffs, none of them matter anymore. So, at this point, find one that's a cool location fans want to go to. And like you said, it's great to have another game, mostly for practice. Let the fans enjoy one more game. It'll be interesting to see. One thing that's gonna just keep getting weirder and weirder is transfer portal. So how many kids are you even gonna have available to play? How many of them are gonna play? Used to you only had to worry about the draft, and even then, AJ, the first one I remember that really started the hey, I'm gonna sit out and not play the bowl game was AJ McCaffrey, or not AJ McCaffrey. Who's McCaffrey?
AJ McCarron?
No, who's McCaffrey, the running back for San Fran? What's his first name? It doesn't matter.
Christian
McCaffrey. He set out. He caught a lot of flack for it, and then we've forgotten about it now because everybody does it. But, it's going to be hard. Coaches are going to have to field a team, and that's going to be interesting. But anyways, I'm rambling. At the end of the day, good location, good opponent. I'm pleased.
Yeah. And Auburn has a good track record in the Music City Bowl. I was looking back, 2003, Auburn defeated Wisconsin 28-14. The most recent one was 2018, where we faced Purdue. And if y'all remember that one, I was in a hotel watching this one, and it was glorious.
We destroyed them, didn't we? Yeah.
63-14. Yeah. And I was like, I feel like it was worse than that. Like, 63 points seems like we didn't. I mean, we scored a lot, but like we scored 56 of those points in the first half, and that was just like, it felt like it was a prototypical like Gus Malzahn when he had a defense figured out and he was running his plays and he knew exactly what to call. Man, good luck. Like, good luck. And Purdue could never catch up. Like, they never figured out what Gus Malzahn was doing. I think the second half we just said, pack it in. We already won this game. We're going to pretty much just run the ball and let Purdue kind of do whatever they want in the second half. And that was fun. So I have probably some unrealistic expectations that maybe this game could be something like that, but it's still kind of we know how to play there. I looked up, Maryland has never played in the Music City Bowl before, so Auburn has already kind of an advantage, even though it was only 5 years ago. I do want to talk about some extra stuff here. We talked about the players getting some extra practices, but I want to talk about some of the extra, the players that get those extra reps. Like, who are some players that you think would benefit from those extra practices? Because a few kind of come to mind for me that I think have had some kind of missteps per se, maybe not played up to their potential. But I think this is a time where they get the extra reps. You're just preparing for the next 3 weeks to play a team, and a lot of that you get to practice and build a team chemistry, especially for a lot of these guys. If you're going to come back next year, this is going to be critical for you. So one of the first big ones was Jay Fair. I feel like Jay Fair has kind of, we thought early on he was going to be our go-to receiver, and I feel like in the second half of the season, he did some things, but it wasn't as impressive. And I feel like this is a time for him to almost do a little bit of a reset, because I think he's a solid wide receiver for us that could benefit. Jared, any players from that you think would benefit from the extra practices over the next few weeks?
Yeah, I mean, I think any freshman, right? But Caleb Burton, to me, I think he's got a chance to become a huge piece next year, and this will be his chance to solidify that. I mean, I know we're going to talk about the big flip we got recently at wide receiver. We got several wide receivers coming in, but they're going to be freshmen, and so Caleb Burton, I think Jay Fair is a great example. Fair, Caleb, he ended on a uptick. Fair kind of did not. So, if he could get back in there and reprove himself, and then Keldrick Falk on the defensive side, that he's got the God-given part of it. Any extra reps he can get to really fine-tune that before next year. And then I was trying to look it up. I can't remember the true freshman DB that had to play so much while Pritchett was out. We flipped him from Ohio State last year, but he'll get extra playing time as well. Played really well when he had to. Kayan Lee, I think that was his name.
Yep, Kayan Lee. Yep.
Yeah, Kayan Lee. So guys like that need the extra reps. I think, and the Jeremiah Cobb. I mean, I'm basically just mentioning all the freshmen, but any of those guys, as many reps as possible. And I don't know. Do you play a if you think Thorne's your guy, who knows what happens in the portal? If Thorne's your guy, you probably let him get more reps. But do you put a Holden in there? If Holden's still with us, do you let him? You see what he can do in real live action. This is time to experiment a little bit, I guess.
Yeah, I've kind of pondered that too. Like, in my mind, Peyton Thorne's staying. I don't have any facts for sure to back that up, but I just have a gut feeling he's staying. He's not transferring anywhere else. And then you kind of have, Robbie, which I feel like Robbie's kind of a wild card. And then Holden, which, I mean, there was lots of improvement supposedly from practice. I mean, even Coach Hugh Freeze talked pretty highly about how well he did over the last few weeks. And so, maybe have some packages for him, for later in the game. Just say, hey, give him full on, hey, we're going to actual good game, not just throw him in the fourth quarter. I would love to see that just from a development standpoint. I mean, kind of from a standpoint of development, even I'm just thinking back on this, how under Gus Malzahn, a lot of people had problems with how Gus Malzahn would develop players. And I've seen under Hugh Freeze in just his short time here, lots of players develop. Offense, defense, everything. And I feel like that part is really encouraging to me. And another differentiator between him and the previous couple coaches, that he's taking the guys he has and making them better. And I feel like that by itself is already pretty encouraging. And then not to mention, you already hinted at it, the guys that we flipped. I mean, we got Cam Coleman, a 5-star wide receiver to flip to Auburn. And at this point, I was just looking at some of these really top recruits, especially in the state of Alabama. Right now we have 3 of the top 5 players in the state of Alabama. Cam Coleman, wide receiver, 5-star. Perry Thompson, 5-star, wide receiver. DeMarcus Riddick, 4-star linebacker. And there's talk, potentially, of another wide receiver kind of flipping. And so I'm really excited, from a coaching perspective, what Hugh Freeze has done. And, hey, right now, recruiting season is for real. It's happening. It's Hugh Freeze is coming to your living room, talking to your mama, and not your mama, but the player's mama. And,
they're not coming to talk to mama. Trust me. No coach is coming to talk to my mom trying to recruit me. I can promise you.
Yeah, but I'm just I've heard really good things about that, so really excited to see over these next few weeks. I mean, there's lots of building that I feel like is happening for this recruiting class. Which think about it. Auburn's 6-6. I mean, Harson's first year was 6-6. We've discussed this before, but like the differences in my mind are recruiting and how he's developed these players and just coached. I feel way more confident in what Hugh Freeze has done in his first year than what Harsin did in his first year.
AJ, if I ask you to rank what position, give me the top 3 positions that's easiest to have an impact as a true freshman, would wide receiver be in your top 3?
Oh, easily for us right now.
Yeah. I'm just saying in general, like the position that someone can come on and make an impact at any school. Like I think offensive lineman is one of the hardest. Quarterback is one of the hardest. I feel like running back and wide receiver might be 1 and 2, like flip flop. Like I think you can come in, you can say, hey, look, you got to be on the same page with the quarterback. But at the end of the day, you don't have to know what everybody's doing. Here's your route, go run it. And if you're an exceptional athlete, you can make a huge impact. Whereas quarterback, you got to know everything going on. Offensive line, you got to know everything going on. So my whole point is that it's kind of cool that our 5-stars that we're bringing in are at the wide receiver position, because those could be immediate impacts. You bring in a 5-star offensive tackle, okay, that's 2025 maybe. Like they got to develop. No, this could be next year. Like these guys could have a huge impact next year.
Well, and I'm sure that's part of what they're thinking and talking about. I mean, if I'm Hugh Freeze, he just has to show one game where our wide receivers did not show up and say, guys, you come play. This is a different team. Like we're talking about a 9-10 win season next year if our wide receiver plays better this year.
Yeah, I think
that's what we could have had.
I think Burton and Javarius Johnson showed that at the end. I think those were key, probably the recruiting. It's like, look, we're getting these guys open. They're running the right routes. They are wide open. We're hitting them, and they're making big plays. Like that's all we need.
And you look at Caleb Burton, for example, where Javarius Johnson, like they're not the highest caliber guys.
No,
like. As far as like talent, like they're not going to be your 5-stars. Like we have right now, think about it, 0 5-stars on this team. And we have 2 that are committed to Auburn right now, which, that's by itself really cool. But I think there's a 3rd in kind of the works. To have that many come flip to Auburn is just so exciting.
Agreed.
All right. So another topic I want to talk about because we just had bowl selection Sunday. We had the playoff committee announce everything, and we had the Iron Bowl, and then we had a week later all the SEC championship. And just from an Auburn perspective, it hurts every time watching an SEC championship where it's Georgia versus Bama, and I feel like it hurt. I don't know about you, but it hurt me even more knowing that both Georgia and Bama, we played both teams so well, and both of these teams are making it to the SEC championship. It just hurts maybe a little bit more, but here we are.
Yeah, it was the thing. Here we are. The thing about you're right. We literally were maybe 2 plays different in the Georgia game, we win, and Bama, let's not talk about it. But, the Georgia game never really felt like we were going to win, but we were there. They had a game-winning drive, and that was it. Bama, really, really, like middle of the third quarter on, we were the better team. not like, oh, we might slip up and win this. We were actually stopping them. We were dominating that game from the middle of the third, and I think we are. I think if you can do that with the level of talent you have right now, and you keep on that same trajectory, you bring in better players, it's just going to happen by math. Like, it's just how things work. And the problem with, you mentioned the previous coaching staff, the problem with them was they had that same foundational first year, but they didn't add enough, and they weren't on a path to do it even 2 years into recruiting. So, but yeah, as far as the selection, AJ, there is only one sport that I can think of, and you could get into, I guess, ice skating, right? But there's only one team sport that I can think of where you can't look at your team at the beginning of the year and say, guys, if you win every game on your schedule, you will get to play for a championship. And it happens to also be one of the most profitable sports in America and one of the most popular sports in America. And that is insane to me.
Yeah, I just feel for Florida State. Like, let's flip I feel like the thing that against them was, hey, you didn't play that great in your bowl game. You still won. Or not your bowl game, your conference championship game. You beat Louisville. Okay, cool. You did it. Therefore, I think you should be given the opportunity to go. And they were a number 4 already. It wasn't like they were already out of the playoffs and they had to work their way in. Like, they were a number 4 team. And what sucks is their quarterback is out for the rest of the season at Florida State. And as much as I don't like Florida State from the 2013 season, yada, yada, I still think they deserve to be in there. Now, I've heard kind of the counter argument, which I think I see why people do it, but like, they're afraid of the TCU thing that happened last year. It's the, oh wow, TCU comes in here, they've had a great season, and then just get shellacked by a amazing team. I don't think Florida State is going to be in that situation. Like, if Florida State was put in the playoffs, they're going to bring in, they have a lot of great fans. They're going to bring in the money, and they're going to be able to compete. Now, are they on their backup quarterback? Yes. I don't care. Like, you've got 3-4 weeks before you play a game in the playoffs. You can get a backup quarterback ready in that time. And if I'm being honest, you kind of have the sleight of hand, you're not showing all of your cards to the other team because you have a backup quarterback. They have no idea what you're going to be doing with that backup quarterback. That's advantage FSU. Just a thought there. I feel like they definitely got snubbed, and I'm still kind of worked up about it because I don't know about you, Jared, but like, I know you lived it in college through the 2004, like Auburn getting snubbed from that, like, golly,
yeah,
it's just crazy.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's probably because honestly, people are like, well, you're an Auburn fan. You're mad at Alabama. I don't care. It literally has nothing to do with Alabama. I just feel for FSU. There is nothing else they could have done. They won every game, and you could make the argument. Listen, it was not pretty, but you can make the argument they beat a really good Louisville team without a quarterback. Like,
yeah, pretty much.
That means that team is very sound at every position. And you are correct. You hit the nail on the head. You give them 3 weeks with a backup quarterback at a major university, you can create a solid game plan enough to win. What they were saying was, there's been years where, I don't know, Bama and LSU, they regular season was 10-7, and they said this is the greatest defenses known to man, and so they put them back in the championship game, and it was like those were great defenses, but FSU holds Louisville to 6 points or whatever, and it's like, well, they don't have a quarterback. Well, no, but do they have a great D? I mean, here's my thing. Here's me. If you put Florida State in and somebody comes to me and has a complaint about another team, I look at them and I'm say, don't lose. Like, you can come to me and say, well, but we beat so-and-so. Did you lose? We did. Okay. it's out of your hands now. Florida State did not lose. There's nothing else they could have done. They even scheduled a tough SEC opponent in LSU, who was a very good team. They weren't the team everybody thought they were going to wind up being. They were still very good. The ACC is not great, but let's be honest, the SEC wasn't either. I mean, I hate to be the example, AJ, but Alabama had a very unpredictable play that would not happen 9 out of 10 times, or they don't beat us.
I know. That's true. And Alabama's at that point a 2-loss team, completely out of it.
Yeah, I'll end with this. The only reason Alabama gets in is because you're saying, listen, I think Alabama is a better team. So I'm putting the 4 best teams in. If you're using that philosophy, Georgia's in as well. If you're going off of, I think I'm putting in just the 4 best teams, forget what happened, then Georgia's in too. So it's like they pick and choose what philosophy they want to use. And
right. Well, and again, like everybody, like all my Georgia friends, I don't know about you, but like they were so convinced. And I was like, but you're number 1 headed into the last week. And what are you saying? Like you might be kicked out of the playoffs? And everybody was convinced. And I was like, like the logic in my mind is you're number 1, you lost to an Alabama in your SEC championship, and it was a close game. Okay, so you bumped down to like a 3 or 4 seed. Like that to me seems reasonable. But obviously they were just like, oh, you didn't win your conference championship. Oh, well, you're out. Bye. And to me, like, again, like this is coming from an Auburn fan. Like I wanted like Georgia to stay in that despite their loss. But here we are, and we're talking about Alabama sneaking in there from the 8 seed all the way up to a 4 seed. And my thought is, I know everybody's like SEC money. I think that's a valid point. Like SEC is going to bring in the money, which, that's a part of this. It's a business. Like college football is a business, and they want to make money. And how do you do that? Have the teams that bring in the money. They know which teams those are. And that's part of the reason they decided to do that. I mean, so I kind of, that's some of my negatives, obviously, towards this. I do want to turn around on some positives because I am honestly really pumped up about some of these matchups. Like, just the semifinals themselves. Yeah. Michigan versus Bama. Like, I can't think of, in my mind, a better matchup. Like, Bama's on a roll. Michigan looks like they can just beat any team and every team this year for the most part. And then you got some craziness that happens at Washington, I feel like, this year. They're kind of like having a great season. And Texas has had a fantastic season too. So it's like, I love this. There's going to be so much hype around this year's playoffs just because I feel like the matchups are going to be really solid. That's a positive. And maybe that's probably why they wanted to do it. But to me, that's like, I hate it for Florida State. I hate it for Georgia. I hate it for the other teams that just barely missed out. And thank goodness this is the last year of the playoffs being only 4 teams. Because, I mean, I'm sure there's still going to be some gripes, once it expands to 12 teams next year. But at least we had, in like the 12-team playoff, you're guaranteed to have the best team in the top 12 for sure. Like there will be some 2, maybe even 3 lost teams if you're really good in that, and that could be really exciting. So just kind of some food for thought on right now where the bowl's at and where the playoffs are headed in the future. So, Jared, any other thoughts about the playoffs this year, next year, and the future of all that?
No, I think you hit the high points. I say no, and then I'm going to add a few things. I think I am probably pulling for Washington. I mean, they're the underdog, right? I mean, even though they're number 2, I don't know that they'll consistently get back to this. They might. They got a great coach, so would love to see them win it all. I don't have anything against Michigan, even with all the stuff that went on this year. I've never had a problem with them. I got a couple of buddies that are Michigan fans. And to me, Michigan is very similar to Georgia because people forget. I don't think Michigan's lost a regular season game in like 3 years. They only lose in the playoffs.
It's been a long time.
They are very consistent in the sense that you watch Georgia and they don't do anything flashy, in my opinion, and then at the end of the game, it's like 40 to 28. They are very sound in everything that they do. They don't make mistakes. But Georgia just does it with 5 stars. Michigan's doing it with 3 and 4 stars, but it's a very similar makeup. So it'll be interesting to see how that translates into playing Bama and what the outcome is there. Overall, Texas, I don't know really what to think. I've watched one of their games and they beat Alabama. But, I don't know that I'm still fully sold on them, but they got a lot of talent. So it'll be fun to watch for sure, but I think in the end, I'm probably hoping Washington wins it all.
I would love to see Washington. I'm a sucker for the underdog as well, for that to happen. If I'm being honest, I think it'll probably come down to if Alabama's super hot, then there's no stopping a hot Alabama team. But I mean, if I'm being realistic, I mean, we slowed them down a lot. It was essentially a 6-6 Auburn team. I mean, if that Alabama team comes out, or Michigan has a great game plan for Alabama, I mean, like, Michigan could run the table.
I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be Michigan. I think it's Michigan versus Washington. I think both of them win. I think that Penix? Is that how you say his name? Michael Penix Jr.
Mm-hmm.
I just think he's just got it, man. He's got that swagger. He's got what it takes. And they have some legit – I think they have some legit NFL receivers on their team. So,
yeah, they do.
I mean, I've heard people say, how is Washington doing this and Auburn can't do this? They don't have better recruits. They don't overall, but they at the key positions, they have some really good players. And that can make a difference.
Yeah, like, for example, I was just looking at some of their season leaders. Just for example, at Washington. Their rushing leader right now already has 1,100 yards, 14 touchdowns. Their leading receiver has 1,400 yards.
Yeah, they have
legit. Yeah. Auburn hasn't even dreamed of having a 1,000-yard receiver in it feels like decades. Now I'm exaggerating a little bit, but it feels like that. And they have a guy who's already at 1,428 yards without even going to an extra game. Well, I guess they played a conference championship, but still, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah, but they were getting wide open against Oregon, and Oregon's a really good team. So yeah, it's I think it's Washington, Michigan, man. I think that's who it is.
Yeah. Also, speaking of Oregon, they're playing Liberty. That's going to be an absolute murder fest. I feel like Oregon's going to slaughter Liberty, and I feel I get it. Liberty deserves it for that Fiesta Bowl, but. It's Oregon's about to just run all over them. If they don't have a lot of people sitting out, then it's going to be crazy.
Agreed.
So, alrighty. Any other final thoughts, Jared, before we get out of here?
No, sir. I think we've covered it all.
Cool. Looking forward to the next few weeks. I'm sure we'll start hearing more players entering the transfer portal. Maybe some coming to Auburn. It's just expected. There's already a couple wide receivers putting their names in the transfer portal for Auburn, and I feel like that's, again, kind of to be expected after a year like this, and some other players I'm sure will come. So, hey, we got a lot of exciting stuff, especially with recruiting coming, so it's going to be a fun one, and we look forward to doing another podcast. We have lined up a fun special guest. We'll get some Maryland perspective for our preview show that'll be in the next probably couple of weeks. So very excited to get an extra perspective that Jared and I probably won't be able to offer because we don't know Maryland that well. But let me assure you, Jared and I know this guy. He is very well versed in Maryland. I'm very excited to get him on. So
yes, sir.
Jared, before we get out of here, how can the people stay in touch with you?
You can just find me on Facebook under my name, Jared Davis.
And you can find me on X at AJAY, JAY_. It's always great to be an Auburn Tiger and War Eagle.
War Eagle.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode on the E2C Network. On your way out, I want to remind you to stop by e2cnetwork.com. It's your one-stop shop for all our content across our podcast, YouTube channel, and much more. To stay up to date with us, make sure you're following social media accounts such as Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. While our content here may always be Auburn sports heavy, if it's orange and blue, it's what we do. War Eagle.